former. I started the poetry clubs, a decade ago. He was one of the first year students in that poetry club, and so I just kind of been keeping up with him.
Yeah.
And so he's been going through. I've been paying for him to go through social media, like an intense social media training while working for me. And so he's always been good at creating assets, and now he understands what to do with them. So he just made a presentation to our team about this is our media strategy for the next da-da-da-da. We got the book coming out. We got music we're working on. And this is how everything else kind of fits into it. And I'm just like, this. This. Because I don't have the mind for it. I enjoy social media. I understand the purpose of it as far as business is concerned. But I'm too self-conscious to promote myself. So that's why, I paid that money, not because I don't know or couldn't learn how to do. I was doing this. I was filming workshops by myself before it all happened. But I don't know which parts of me to put out to the world.
Yeah.
And I always.
There's an AI for that now.
Yeah, I know, and so that's a whole nother story. I have a whole. If you want to get into some shit, I got a whole opinion on AI. We can talk about that.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, I know. Right? I just filmed my first one. We're doing a podcast. I just filmed my first one on Tuesday. And,
okay.
We sat there and then we were just talking while he was doing the setup, and he was like, "Y'all need to shut the fuck up, because y'all saying everything that you need to be saying on the thing right now in the pre." Yeah, so I learned that lesson. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's it's all good, man. So look, listen, we starting juicy, y'all. Welcome to In My Bag with Backpack Jeff, where we connect with ordinary people doing extraordinary things, y'all. And today I have speaker, I have poet, I have author, I have also new author of the book called Talk Ugly. It's available for pre-order right now. This is a workshop host. This is a panelist. This is a community advocate, a youth advocate. Just a couple of things that I know about this good brother. Ladies and gentlemen, Joseph, Mr. LMS Voice. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm hearing the people cheer. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm blessed, man. How are you doing? It's funny because everything that you list, I swear we went to the same training program, because almost all of those things, they also pertain to you too.
Yeah, you know what? I'm thankful for that, because I'm always looking to connect with more people who are aligned and do the things that I do. You know what I mean? Because there's different levels of conversations that I'm able to have with those certain people that I could have with, somebody who isn't in that same line of business.
Yeah, it's a weird, lonely world sometimes, because we don't have the association of people who do 20 different things, right? But they all feed into the same thing. But so whenever I'm the same way, whenever I get to have audience with someone who's a consultant or a teaching artist or a speaker, it's like, something I don't know.
Right.
So we know something that other people don't know, because we're here. It's like if a server meets another server, or a truck driver meets another truck driver. Right. There's just things about that world that you people on the outside can observe, and maybe you saw a movie or something, or you got a friend who does it, but until you do it, you don't understand the 360 of the space. So yeah, I'm excited about this conversation also, because yes, great for content, but I'm also I would love to hear and be in conversation with someone who is in such a similar space as I am.
Absolutely. I'm super looking forward to this. Okay, so let's start right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. What were you first on the list of things that you are? Were you a speaker first? Were you a poet first?
I was going to say
an author first.
I was black before all of this. And it's funny though, because if you think about it, it definitely attaches and affects all of the things on the list. But the first thing I was on the list was a performer. I did theater in high school. I went to school for theater.
Okay.
At VCU, and I've always been in front of people, which is odd to folks who know me well, because I have anxiety. I've always had anxiety, even before I knew what it was called. But the interesting thing about how it manifests in me is when I perform, it's so loud that I don't hear what's inside of my head. So it's actually the calmest time, because when I'm off the stage, what's going on inside my head is super loud.
Yeah.
And it causes me to be alone in large groups of people. So like I've always been a performer in spite of the anxiety. Went from theater to poetry because I was torn doing theater, and realized that if I was going to be broke, I didn't want to be broke doing Peter Pan, which is what I was doing at that point, literally. And I had always written, and because I was a performer, I had a talent for the performance side of it. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I met a dude when I was in Richmond who was from New York, and he was like, yeah, you do this poetry thing. I went to the SUNY schools, and they had like CUPSI teams, which is like the college. I don't even know if it still exists anymore, but it's the college. Okay.
It does.
And so we toured at all the CUPSI schools in New York, and that was the beginning of my spoken word career.
That was the beginning of the career. Did you ever compete for like national slam poetry?
I did. So that's how that ended. So we went on tour, and I didn't know about the competition world except for the movie Slam with Saul Williams, and it followed the New York team.
There's a movie called Slam?
There's a movie called Slam, and it follows like the 1996 or 97 national
poetry slam.
National Poetry Slam. So one of the earliest ones. So Saul Williams is on the team, and I can't think of the dude. He's a white dude who's a teacher. He has the poem about teaching. I can't think of his name right now, but like a bunch of old heads in the scene.
Right.
And that's what got me like hooked to the idea that like this is what I wanted to do. My freshman year of college, Amethyst Rock All Star, which is Saul Williams' first rock album. Slam, I saw for the first time, and Slam Nation is the name of that movie. And then Slam, which is the movie where Saul Williams plays like a drug dealer who goes to jail in D.C. And like poets his way out of the situation. But like it was like my first, like I wanted to be Saul Williams. That's where I caught the bug. And so, yeah, so I knew about it. But when we went to New York, our last tour date was at SUNY Oneonta. And there was a bar in that town called the Black Oak Tavern that was having a slam, and I slammed, and I made the team. And so the dude I was on tour with, and the guy who owned the bar was like, if you come up here to represent, our little town in the National Poetry Slam, I'll get you a place to stay. I'll teach you how to be a bartender. So I was like, I was 23, 24. I dropped out of college. I was working in a furniture store. I quit the furniture store to do the tour, and I had nothing planned after the tour. You can do that when you're 24. And so I was like, hell yeah, I'll move up here. So I went home 3 months later, packed the bags up, and moved to upstate New York to go to my first National Poetry Slam, which was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Yeah, we drove across the country in a van with some of the craziest people. So we went to get there. We went down and across, and to get back, we went up and across. And it's again just adventure. Just adventure. I mean,
nobody thought to go diagonal.
No, we don't do diagonal, man. So like right now, like I didn't. If you don't know. If you are in your 20s and you don't know and you think you're busy now, I have 2 kids. I have 6 jobs.
Yes.
I don't have 3 weeks to drive anywhere, right? And if I did, I'd have to take my family with me. Right. And that's not a vacation for those of you who are wondering. It's just parenting on the road. So if that idea of being like, yo, I got 3 weeks and we're just going to drive across the country. We stopped at like watering holes and the sand dunes in Colorado. Like we jumped into like natural, just like crazy stuff that I'm blessed to have a part of my memory right now. It's like adventure. I never got to backpack across Europe or whatever, but like I've been to 48 states.
Wow.
Right, where I've actually gotten out and experienced.
So what are the 2 states have you not experienced?
Hawaii and Alaska.
Hawaii.
It's funny because my oldest son has Alaska on his list already at 10. But yeah, so those are the only 2 states.
I literally just saw something on Instagram last night about going to Alaska, and they say that I think like one of the safest ways to get there is by boat, and you have to like do it from like Uganda or something like that. Yeah. And it takes like 2 days or something like that. But they got the penguins are all out there, but then they're also like I'm a big sea person, so I love whales, man. I can like watch whales all day long. Yeah. And I just want to see a family of orca.
Have you ever seen a whale in real life?
Yeah, I went whale watching before.
Okay, yeah. I drove up the one in California. Southern California? Yeah. So we started in LA and we drove to Oakland and across the one, and like I didn't know what I would
you see a blue whale out there.
Yeah, I looked to the left and saw like it's whales, and the person who was driving like was from California, so they knew to expect that. But yeah, it's like actual whales, like, and you get we didn't have a magnifying glass, we had cell phones.
Okay,
so like we had to like get closer on the zoom on the cell phone. But yeah, it's whales. It's a magical thing. It's this. There's so many things in this world that I think we take for granted because we can see it on film.
I want to see. I want to swim with whales. Yeah. But the blue whales or like the humpback whales. I don't want to swim with the orcas because they play too much and they dangerous.
Yeah.
But I'll swim. I want to swim scuba dive with the blue whales. I've been scuba diving before. I could have lived down there, man.
Yeah.
I could have literally, like, if I would, like, I wanted to meet SpongeBob and Sandy Cheeks and just get
first
to
thing
the dome.
The song was going in my head. I'm like, is he going to be insulted if I sing the song right
no,
now?
Like that was what I wanted, man. I can spend hours and hours and days. I plan to like Will Smith voyage when I turn like 50 and just like go and see cool stuff. And
where you from originally?
So I'm from here originally. Okay. So I grew up in the DMV area, like Suitland, Temple Hill, Oxon Hill, Forestville, stuff like that. And then in 2007 I graduated and I went to Pennsylvania for 11 years, got 2 degrees, came back in 2018, and I've been here since.
So when did we cross paths first? It wasn't before 2007.
No,
it was since 2018. Okay. Yep, something about, first of all, I guess I have to accept that 2018 was 5 years ago. But something about your presence in the scene, maybe it's just how large you are in the scene, that it made me feel like you had been running in the DC scene for as long as I have. But if you just graduate, I got back in DC in 2010 or 2009. Right before, so that was, speaking of going back to the poetry slam thing. So we went to nationals. I went twice for New York. I went once for Richmond, and I went twice for DC.
Okay.
And so that's when I moved back to DC. Was the year that they started the Beltway Slam team.
Yeah.
So I was, I think I was like, I got like second place the first year, and I think either I won or either way, I was on the team twice. One time with like the old heads, and then one time with like I was the old head. And well, I mean, you know, it changes quickly. It changes quickly. It was like I was the youngest person on my first team, and then I was the oldest person on my second team. But it was a magical experience. But like DC at that time was a magical place. If you think about it, like the people. So the year that I lost the year after, but the people I lost to, the reason I didn't go the year after, I lost to Clint Smith, Elizabeth Acevedo, G. Yamazawa, Pages, and Roscoe, right? So that was the team that won from DC, that won the national. They were the ones that finally brought it home to DC.
Right.
So like those are the people that were percolating in DC at that time.
Yep.
You know, you got G, 3 albums. Roscoe was apparently running Richmond. Elizabeth on her like 4th book. Clint Smith is Clint Smith.
Right.
I mean, and Pages ran poetry in DC for a very long time. So it was like it was a really magical time to come out and be in DC, because not only were we all doing that work, we were all running the youth programs too. So each one of those people I named was a coach for a school doing the youth poetry event.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was we had our own local stuff, and then of course there was the DCU Slam team that led Brave New Voices. So so it was just I missed that time.
Yeah,
I missed that time.
No, man, I definitely understand. Yeah, I came back, man, with a passion to do this, and I knew I was in Pennsylvania for a long time, in Pittsburgh area, and they just didn't support the arts the way that DC does. Like you can find an open mic every night here, multiple open mics every single night here.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anywhere else in the country you can go and find poetry Monday through Friday, like 2 a day. 3 a day, sometimes even 4 a day,
Yeah.
Particularly between here, the DMV area, and then even when you go out to Baltimore, they're now almost every day of the week out in Baltimore too.
It's crazy. You can say whatever you want to say about busboys and poets, but it's the backbone of it.
For sure.
Right? You know what I mean? It's the backbone of it. And if you are a hustler, like if you want to make it in this world,
do a busboys run.
Do a busboys run.
That's what I did when I first got back.
Yeah, you can, and now at Busboys with like the 47 locations apparently they have, you could not only can you make some change doing it, but like if you become regular, like for me, I hosted for almost 8 years, and being a host it gave me a central location, and then everybody came to me. Right. Like the features came to me and the new people in town came to me. And that's how I met people. That's how folks came up, yo, can I be a feature? Can I be your spotlight, so on and so forth? And it's not so much like, ooh, look at me, like power brokers, but it's just like, it's hard to be the person on the outside coming in. So when you can be the person on the inside for a little bit and know what to do with it, I made so many relationships and met so many people that I still know now and still work with now just by, and it's not like I was like making like rent money, I mean, hosting at Busboys, it's crazy that you get paid to host an open mic. So like blessings there, but you're not going to pay your bills with it. But that's not what it's about.
It's not. It's definitely about creating a following for yourself, creating community, creating support for yourself. So at what point did you start to take the business side of poetry more serious? Because I think that's one of the things that when I talk to artists and I try to help artists, I try to encourage them not to just fall in love with the artist part of what it is that you do, but you also have to find a love for the business part of what you do. When did you start that?
So there was I guess you call it the dark ages, and I think most people, anyone who's done an art form for years has a period of time where they don't create. Maybe it's they have to go take care of a parent. They, had a kid and now they got to get a job. But whatever it is, writer's block is both like intangible and very tangible. It's like, I can't sit down and write nothing. I got to go and earn, right? Or whatever it may be. So after I lost that poetry slam, I turned my attention to working with young people and really creating after school programs that I hoped to be impactful, and I didn't really write. And in that time, I think I came to terms with the reality that I am not going to be the best poet in the world.
Okay.
And I started listening to the poems of the young people and seeing how people were reacting to them. And they weren't reacting to the poems because the young people were the best poets in the world. They were reacting to the poems because the young people were telling a truth, an honest truth that really connected with the audience. And I think from that experience, I came to realize that my goal isn't to write poems for poets to tell me that I'm great at poetry. And that's where the slam world had kind of got me to be, because our audience in the slam world is primarily
other poets,
right? Like your judges may be random, but like you are writing poems for the approval of other poets. You want other poets to say, he's the GOAT, he's the best, that line, da-da-da-da-da. You want to be that person.
Right.
And then when I stepped away from that world, I stepped away long enough to realize that my poetry wasn't meant to win competitions. My poetry was meant to change people's lives. And so this pressure kind of relieved itself from me. Like, I always got to write new poems. No, you got to find audiences for the poems you have already, because so the book is called Talk Ugly. Talk Ugly was a poem I wrote 12 years ago.
Right.
If I would have given up on that because I always have to write new stuff and my old stuff becomes obsolete, there's still, I'm pretty sure, at least 600 million people who haven't heard Talk Ugly yet. right? You know, if 1 million people heard it, there's still at least 600 million who haven't heard the poem yet. So the idea that it's done all of its work is ridiculous. And so it led me to seek out new audiences. And with seeking out new audiences, people paid me because I was really good at doing that thing, which was performing and then being able to speak to my poems and not just, you know, worrying about being the most clever writer in the room. Because now the majority of my audience is not poets. It's just not random people in many different professions. And they only care about, does this poem mean something to me in a particular way?
Right.
And then how can I take what you gave me and manifest it in my life in a way that's useful? Right? So I mean, in a lot of the spaces I occupy, I am a novelty because there aren't a lot of people who can do poems and then tell stories and then train and then, you know, attach it in all of these ways. But I was running workshops and writing curriculum for young people for 6 years, running Poetry Now, then Split This Rock youth programs. I was hosting open mics for almost a decade. And every time I host an open mic, I become a better public speaker. People ask me, how did you get this good talking in public?
That was literally going to be my next question. Is from hosting.
It's 10,000 hours.
It's
10,000 hours.
Literally, man.
You're not clocking it, but you just realize, even if you only speak between every speaker, your brain is always on, and you're always listening and trying to figure out what was being said that I can respond to and connect people. That's hosting. What can I respond to that the poet said that's going to connect the audience? Even if the poet was whack, like what thing happened here that I can connect and get value out of? And if you can look at your situation, a person's life, a person's organization, a job space or whatever, and say, it may not be great, but there's good somewhere in here. How do I use my ability to invoke language from folks and create conversation to make this space better? That's a valuable thing that people will pay you for.
It's definitely a valuable asset that a lot of people need. And I didn't attribute my ability to ad-lib to my hosting experience. And I think that that's kind of where that came from when I see some other people like fumble with, you know, different ad-libbing moments or what is that thing with comedy called? Like prop comedy, improv. Yeah, like they're unable to improv. I'm like, man, how come they couldn't throw anything in there?
You can't. So that thing right there. So I went from doing poems only to, I think it was 7 years ago. So I'm a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder. So I was asked to speak at a conference in New Orleans for the American Association of Addiction Medicine. And how that came about is too long of a story, but they knew I had poems and they knew I had a story, and they wanted me to speak to all of these medical doctors who work in addiction medicine.
Right.
And I had never strung together a keynote before. And it's how I do it to this day. I have, my poems are the 10 poles between the talking in between, but I'll do a poem and then I will talk. And people are like, yo, can I get a copy of your keynote? Like the written copy. I'm like, I've never written a keynote down, right? I have my poems. I know what I want to say in between. I practice the stories. I obsess over it, like going into it. But like in the moment, I am listening to the crowd's response to the poem. I'm asking my clients, like, what is it that you want to get out of this moment? What you want them to walk away with? Because I can take a story and give you 4 different morals to it. And so I'm never limited by the fact that, I only have my story to tell. Okay. Sorry, I know I'm going all over.
So hold on. Let's back it up. I want to break down what you're saying, because you're literally teaching people how to write a speech.
Yeah.
And I don't want it's particularly my people who are listening who desire to be speakers, because this is super important. This is one of the skills that I think that I try to teach, but one that you certainly have to have in speaking is to be able to, number one, tell your story and be able to pull multiple different morals out of that same exact story and have a poem that can relate to one of those different all four of those different morals. I tell people all the time, I can take one poem, and because I'm good at improv and walking it in, I can make it about Black history. I can make it about mental health. Yeah. I can make it about nothing. Yeah. I can make it about a good time. I can make that poem anything that I want because I'm good at the improv. I'm good at walking it in. I'm also paying attention. There's a lot of different elements that you're going through as a speaker, as a poet, to help connect the audience members, right? So how did you learn this skill and this technique of, number one, storytelling? I've never written down one of my, well, I lied. My very first keynote, before I knew like how to speak. Yeah. I wrote a 4-page speech. I memorized off every single line on them 4 pages. Every single line. And it was.
Was it your best keynote ever?
It was probably the worst. It was definitely the worst one. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And what was crazy was that when I was going through it and somebody would clap to something that I said, I was like, oh shoot, what was the next line?
Yeah.
And then I got to go back 2 lines, and then I got to read it again, and then I go through it. So how did you learn that skill of storytelling, the art of storytelling, but then also being able to pull out different morals?
Well, I think it starts with the fact that I coach speech and debate for a long time. And so I got to watch people perform and help them get better. So, if you can coach a thing, a lot of times you can do that thing if you already have those skills. So I'm already good at speaking out loud. So I'm watching young people. And one of the things that I'm telling them all the time, and I will tell your listeners, is not a presentation, it's a conversation, right? And so do you go into every conversation knowing exactly what it is you're going to say? Like coming into this room right now, I could have called you and been like, yo, I need to know exactly what questions you're going to ask me. And so I can have like a set response.
I would have had nothing for it.
No, it's funny because the person who I interviewed on Tuesday, they asked for the same thing. And I'm like, we're just going to go with the flow. Just like trust me when I say I've been thinking about it and I've been studying you. Right. So if you know we're going to be okay.
That's literally the conversation I had this morning. I was like, I said, no one knows you better than you. Yeah. Every any question that I ask, you will have the answer to. Yeah. I said, I'm not going to ask you what's the Pythagorean theorem. Yeah. And you're.
I know. I swear I've heard it at least once in my life. I have no idea.
I've definitely heard about that Pythagorean theorem.
But let me answer your question more directly as a tool to help. So you can do it as an exercise. So the type of story that I teach right now is called narrative disruption. Mm-hmm. And it is an amalgamation of many different types of storytelling, from improv to intentional conversations, to prompted stories, to public narrative, which is a form of storytelling that was founded at Harvard University, or studied and created and formalized at Harvard University, that I was lucky enough to take some courses in. And all of those things, whatever style of story you may be into, you have to think about what is the gift of the story that you're offering, right? And additionally, what is the value that the person listening to the story is connecting to. Mm-hmm. If you think about our humanity as a Venn diagram, our shared humanity as a Venn diagram, our individual identities are not the thing we're going to have most in common with most people. So if you walk into a speech and it's not all black men with bald heads who do poetry and spoken word, right? Like your personal narrative may actually push your audience away because they can't relate to your lived experience. Yep. But if you lead into that conversation with, I'm going to show you through my lived experience what I value and that you value the same thing. So if I'm speaking in front of a group of parents and I want them to understand that we both value the growth of young people, right? That's the value at the center of this. I'm going to tell you the story how I came to that realization. But if I leave this moment and you don't get the point that I'm also talking about the fact that we care about this same thing, therefore, this thing I'm going to propose that we have to do with your young people may seem a little prickly, may seem a little different, but if we care about the same thing and our young people are our focus, then we can do this thing together and you can make this change for you and your family. Right. That connection of value is what is at the center of the story. And then the direction that you can go from that point is based on who you're serving, right? Like, I can't do a speech for anybody. However, I can do a speech for a lot more people than the very narrow lived experience that I have, right? And so I can speak to a room full of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies and speak to them from a genuine and authentic place. It's not like I'm changing who I am to be present there, and deliver an honest message from a real story in my life and make it seem like we have a lot in common, because at the end of the day, if you are in this business, you are in the business of people's lives. You are serving the people that you are leading.
Right.
And I believe in serving the people that I work with also. So now I came in and I'm like, all right, service is the central value of this.
Yeah.
And I can take that down just about any avenue that you want.
Yeah, I like the idea of being versatile. It's one of the things that I talk to my poets and my speakers about is, number one, being versatile and being able to tell your story. Because a lot of times the people that I speak to, they rarely ever look like me. And in fact, I find it very difficult and challenging to get into HBCUs. Yeah. I can get into a PWI like that. Does not take long at all. Yeah. Like I've been trying to get into almost every HBCU around here. They won't respond to an email. They won't take a phone call. I'll be trying to go in and drop off apples and donuts to teachers and stuff like that, and with no luck, with no success. And so I had to develop the skill of they're not going to relate to my Black experience. Yeah. They're going to relate to my experience as a person, as a human, and have to connect with me on an emotional level. So as you're going through this process, you decide to not write any more new poetry, but you're going to start focusing on working with youth, creating programs, creating curriculums, teaching youth a lot of different skills, right? At what point do you say to youth, hey, you might be able to make a career out of this thing that you're doing?
So in my many careers, one was co-running a mentoring program. And so I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of young people about what it is they want to do in life. And I walk back the conversation immediately if someone comes and says, I want to do what you do. Because first of all, unless you're my wife, you don't know what it is that I do, right? Like it's the part of me that you're exposed to is one of like 20 different sides, right?
Literally.
And so first of all, you may be intrigued by me, the performer, and think that, I see how people are responding to him. I want people to respond to me this way. Or I have a trauma that's similar to your trauma, and I think that I want to put it to use by helping other people know that they're not alone, or whatever it is that you perceive me to do in whatever space we're in. So let's back that up first. And it goes back to, what do you value? And what change do you want to make? And what skills do you have, and what skills do you think you want to invest in? And so when I ask somebody what they do, and we do this if we do a narrative disruption workshop, we introduce ourselves as, hi, my name is Joseph Green. I want you to see me as, right? And I want you to see me as a creator of safe space. I want you to see me as someone who encourages people through their own story to seek out their own story. I want you to see me as a father. I want you to see me as a provider. I want you to see me as, I can go on and on, depending on my audience, what I want them to see me as. It's this tradition of naming yourself, right? So I don't want you to see me as workshop facilitator. I don't want you to see me as public speaker. Because those are titles that have very little value in helping you understand what I hope to accomplish in this space. Because if I'm a public speaker, that only tells you that what I want to do is talk in public, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you think about the title, so if someone tells you what they do, it's like, I'm a public speaker who does this and this. I'm an accountant, so you count things, right? I like to bring order to people's lives. I like to let people feel comfortable with their financial situation so that they can go out and pursue their dreams. Like, what is the thing that you want to accomplish? And once you realize what you want to accomplish, you're going to find there are a multitude of ways of getting there. right? And now it's not about how do I become what you are or do what you do. It's is the what you do the best way for me to get to what I want to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
Using that trauma and learning from that space and wanting to share that with the world and make it a better place doesn't have to be in the form of giving speeches. It can be in the form of being a school counselor. It can be in the form of working in the church. It can be in the form of going into local government. It can get your social, there's so many different things you can do.
Right.
What is the change you want to see in the world? Figure that out, and you can figure a path there. And also, if that path doesn't work, it's not a failure that can't be overcome. It's this just wasn't the right path. Let me take what I learned and find another way to get to what I want. Because I graduated high school thinking I was going to be Denzel. And if I would have, when I dropped out of theater school and stopped touring as theater, if I would have been like, oh man, I'm not the thing that I dreamt of when I was 18, I'm never going to be successful in life, that would have been the end of my journey.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But, my mother always said, with your talent as a kid, you could have been a pastor, you could have been a politician, or you could have been a performer, right? And I didn't understand back then that she was giving me permission to change the world in whatever way best suited me, right? These are your natural God-given talents. Whether or not you're afraid of it or not, or have anxiety about it, when you are in front of people and presenting, your God comes through, right?
Yeah.
And you get to figure out how you want that to make the world a better place. But it doesn't have to be the one thing that first lit you up, or the first club that you were in, or the first time anybody told you were good at a thing. I know a lot of people, especially me as a mentor, a young mentor, like, oh man, this kid's a great poet. I'm going to push him towards poetry because he's good at poetry. Stop. Don't colonize somebody else's dreams. Right? Like, just because that's what you see for them doesn't mean that that's the direction that they need to go in. This is why we need to enter in conversation more deeply with the people that we have these conversations with. Yeah. Because it's real easy to just be, this is how I did it, and I'm going to make a podcast just about the way that I did the things that I did, or all my content is going to be the way you did it. First and foremost, the way I did it, the way I got here before there was social media, right? Like, this a different time. Like, how you do it now is not how you did it 15, 20 years ago.
It is definitely not. I mean, before, and even with that being said, I think there's a lot of elements from how it was done before that should and could be used today. The idea of marketing to people physically, like you had to go pass out flyers and stuff like that before. Now it's, you can post something, run an ad, and it'll be sent out to these people, and if the ad is good enough, they'll click on it and possibly
engage with you somehow. But
exactly. So after poetry, you got into teaching the youth. Okay, through I would imagine throughout that process, you learned the element of speaking, those different things, right? Are you, so if someone wants to, because I know a lot of people who desire to be speakers, if someone wanted to get into speaking, right, what would your advice be to a person who's never really done public speaking before, but they see and they believe that they have a gift in it? What would some advice be that you would give to them?
Create something, put it in front of an audience, absorb their response, do it again. Busboys and Poets has open mics. They don't tell you what you have to do in that 5 minutes. They say you have 5 minutes.
Right.
You want to be a public speaker, you have to speak in public. And you have to be willing to put out cringe-worthy stuff, right? To get to where you want to be. Yeah, there's this I think it's Ira Glass, This American Life. There's a quote that I'm gonna get it wrong, but the paraphrase is good enough. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is work. And the problem with that idea, as simple as it is that if you want to be a speaker, it's because you've witnessed someone speak brilliantly.
Right.
No one has awful experiences watching speakers and like, you know what? I want to get up and get laughed at like that dude did. I want to get booed like the speaker who came to my high school got booed. No, you saw someone knock it out the park, and you're like, I want the world to respond to me the way they respond to that person, right?
Yes.
But you suck when you start, man.
Man,
even if you have a nice speaking voice and you're unafraid to be in public and like you can be goofy or funny, like you do not know what it takes to put together 20 minutes, let alone an hour of interesting conversation.
That hour, oh my goodness. I tell people, if you want to speak, if you don't know what you're speaking about, that hour feels like an eternity. But if you're a good speaker, that hour goes by so fast. Yeah. You're like, where did my time go? I've
been at that point for a while where I'm like, damn, is it over? Because I still, in preparation, get nervous that I don't have enough. And
I literally have to bring this with me so that I know, hey, time to
wrap it up.
Time to wrap it up.
But yeah, that there's if you want to get better faster, then go to open mic every night, right? If you want to get better faster, then because the reality is it's never faster literally. It only feels faster because you condense the time. So while it may take someone 30 days or take someone a whole year, that 30 days still put in the same amount of hours as that 1 year. Right. So maybe you don't have the time, you're trying to get it in between being a single parent, whatever. Then you need to put the baby to bed, write for 30 minutes, get your ideas down, and practice in front of the mirror.
Yep.
And then when you can get a babysitter, go to the open mic. If you can't get a babysitter, then you're going to, like, if you really want it, you will knock on your neighbor's door and say, will you come over and listen to this? Right? If you really want it, right? If you because that's the thing, right? There's so many excuses. I can't get out. I don't have time. How am I going to get to an open mic? Fine. You need an audience. Find an audience. And now with Zoom, and all of this,
StreamYard, you can find going live on Instagram, live on TikTok, Facebook.
And here's the thing. I'm sorry. I just want to. I joined your live. I think it was 2 days ago, and I know you've probably had live where you've had hundreds of people in there. Sometimes you only have 2 or 3 in there, right? But the point is that you're still perfecting your craft, whether or not people sign on, like, and that was a problem I had at first. I'm like, man, I don't want to do this unless I'm doing it for like people, and it counts. No, every time you speak in public, it counts. I have 150 plus open mics where there was less than 10 people in the room, but each of those 150 was another time where I had to figure out, how do you make 10 people stay in their seats?
Last night I went to a college and spoke. There was 1 student and 2 staff members.
Yeah, that's another thing that happens.
Granted, it doesn't change my compensation, but you still have to turn it on. Them same jokes that you thought were going to work, they're not going to hit the same way in a room full of just 3 people. Because no one wants to laugh. Everybody knows who did it if somebody laughs, right? So can you perform and deliver the same way in front of 3 people that you would if it was 300 people?
Yeah.
And one of the people was completely standing up the whole entire time, so he looks uncomfortable. And I'm like, are you going to sit?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to stands up the whole entire time? So yes, if you want to be a speaker, you have to practice speaking. And like you said, if you don't, it's same for poets. If you want to be a better poet, you got to practice poeting. And if you can't find an audience, you have to be able to go out and find your audience somewhere. Go to your neighbor. You got to be absurd about this thing.
Yeah.
And you got to be extremely passionate about going out and actually finding people to get in front of. That's what I think that that's the thing that I learned was the difference between where I am and where I desire to be. Mm-hmm. I kept going to conferences, workshops, buying people's courses, looking for the secret sauce. I was looking for MJ's secret stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I got everything, right? I got everything. And at this point, I'm like, I'm still not making $500,000. Yeah. I'm still not making $20,000 a speech right now. $30,000. What the difference between me and where I am and where they and where I want to be is just activity now.
Yeah.
I just got to do the thing more.
Yeah.
I got to make more phone calls. I got to send out more emails. I got to get it in front of more students, more staff, more youth. And in the beginning, I knew and I understood that. It was only when I started making some money that I forgot that I still have to do this stuff too, because I still need to bring more people to where I am and get more of their attention.
And the other thing I just want to add on to that, ignore anybody that tells you they can get you from where you are to where you want to be magically, right? Like if the ad pops up on Instagram, it's like, hey, stop scrolling. Do you want to get from $0 for speaking to $30,000 in speaking? You want to know the secret that all the speakers know? Then sign up for my course right now. It's a free download that will end you into a funnel that eventually is going to ask you for about at least $3,500. At least $3,500. And so, but if someone says, "Hey, you want to learn the principles of public speaking? You want to learn how to be a better storyteller?" Because those are people are going to teach you the craft. Because the secret behind the craft is doing it as much as humanly possible until you get to a point where you are good enough that people are going to offer you what you are worth. Right. And there is a business side to it. I'm not saying like you shouldn't take business courses and learn how to write contracts or learn how to negotiate. But again, if you are learning how to negotiate before you learn how to write a speech, you are doing it in the wrong order.
100% agree. So okay, so with that said, right? Let's talk about the business part of this, right? Yeah. Like, how do you because
teach me something new. Let me ask you.
People have gifts, they have talents, right? They have curriculums, they have all of these different things, man. How do you go about getting business and stuff like that right now? Like, is it through referrals or what do you?
So what's interesting about it is my strategy started 10 plus years ago without me realizing that it was a strategy. I started by giving away my work for free, not like because it was some benevolent act. It was, I wanted. The story of my work in poetry started as a facilitator, started with me going back to my old high school, and I was the speech and debate coach there. And that's where I was coaching speech. And another teacher heard that I was a poet, found me one day when I was there for practice and asked me, would you come speak to my students about poetry? And I was like, okay, I don't think I'm the one, but if there's no one else, then I'll go. And that's because at that point, I had never taken a formal poetry class. I didn't learn poetry in school. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to tell these young people about making poetry that I didn't learn, just like from being in the game for as long as I was, from working with other poets, like at people's houses and coffee shops and stuff on slam pieces. And so, but I went and it was a beautiful experience. And the young people asked me to come back. And so we started a club, but there was no money for that club. And then other teachers, my students wanted to work with other students in the school system, but we didn't have a way of making that happen. So we invited all of we sent out an email to all the Fairfax County English teachers and said, we're doing a showing of oh my God, I can't believe I can't think. What is the youth poetry slam in Chicago called? Louder Than the Bomb. So we're doing Louder Than the Bomb. 10 years ago, they came out with a documentary. So we showed it at Hayfield High School in Northern Virginia, which is the school I graduated from and was working at the time. And all of the teachers came and was like, yeah, we want to do this. We want to build this here. And they were like, but we don't know how. And so we had to build a curriculum. So now I'm on the hook because I brought all these teachers here. Right. I just thought they were going to be like, yeah, let's do this. We're teachers. We know how to teach poetry. They were like, we want to, but we don't know how to do it. So now I'm building a curriculum with the gentleman's name is Brian Hannon. He's the English teacher, the guy who I started Poetry Now with. Still, no money has shown up yet, right?
Right. Keep note of this part where he says no money has shown up yet.
And this is where I think the difference is drawn for me, is that I knew I wanted to make a difference in this way regardless, right? So I'm working in retail at the time. I'm running the DSW at Pentagon Row at this time, in management. But that's like my day job, right? And then this job got so busy, this free nonprofit job got so busy that I went from management to part-time so that I could be at schools 5 days a week, because we had 6 to 12 clubs going in our second year. So I was the teaching artist. I called 2 of my homies. They came, moved in with me. One, Lonnie and TJ, from 2 different places in the world, came to DC and was like, yeah, well, why not? So now I have 2 teaching artists, a couple of them in TC, some of them are in the Arlington schools, but we're moving around and like we're all doing it. And I'm putting pennies in their pocket because every once in a while I'll get paid to do a workshop. Right. But like they're living in my home, so like this is their payment, and it's an adventure. You get to help start something, and they're bartending and working retail and so on and so forth. But like this whole time, like this thing is growing and building, and people are starting to notice me. And the magic key was, as a coach and sponsor of a Fairfax County club, I got a badge that looks like, at least at the time, I don't know what it looks like, but in the time it looks like every other teacher's badge. Mm-hmm. So I was able to walk into any Fairfax County public school, sign in like I was, an employee of the county. I mean, I was background checking everything, but like, right. And then just go and walk into the English teachers' rooms, like, hey, do you want to start a poetry club here? Da 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 da. It's like, so I mean, like, so like that's how we went from like, it's still no money, and then I think maybe year 3. We got the attention of Split This Rock, which is a nonprofit in D.C. that does poetry and spoken word, and was run at the time by Jonathan, the youth programs. It's run by Jonathan Tucker, and we started doing Louder Than a Bomb as a festival in D.C. So we're partnering with GW University, we're partnering with George Mason University, and we're building all of these things, and people are noticing now, people are seeing, and this is the fateful moment, everyone. This is the fateful moment.
It's what we've been waiting for.
We did a Louder Than a Bomb. I think it was our second one in D.C. And the Virginia students, I'm not with them because I'm still on campus. But the students from Hayfield are going back on the metro, and they're spitting poems to each other in the train. And there's a dude across from them, and he's coming from a baseball game or a hockey game. And he was like, what is this? What are y'all doing? He's like, and it's like, oh, we just did this. They started chatting him up. He's like, I run the student programming at George Mason University. I want this at our university. So we got his information.
Divine timing.
We got his information, and that's how we started the Hyper Bowl. And the Hyper Bowl was a 2-day poetry festival, at the time the largest individual youth poetry slam on the East Coast. And we legitimized ourselves. We started videoing everything. We started taking money from sponsors to like put together scholarships for college students. So like for students that were going to college, so the winners were getting money. Okay. And online and in social media, we were doing all of this beautiful, legitimate work. And then people started seeing me. So I made a noise loud enough that I made myself an expert in the field. Right. I, to this day, do not have a degree, have never formally been taught how to teach, but get paid to teach teachers how to teach, right? Wow. Because I gave my time after school for 3 some odd years perfecting the craft of workshopping, because I didn't know how to do it, right? And there are a lot of people, even with degrees, who think their degree is the ticket to them being paid a certain amount of money. But once you get in and you don't know how to do the thing that you said that you know how to do because of your degree, that is going to be a very short-lived career for you, right? Yep. So sometimes we have to wisely, within our means, right? This is before my kids. Some of it is after my kids. Blessed to my mom and dad for coming through when I needed them. But, wisely, we have to sometimes bury our ego, or that voice that's sometimes in our head and sometimes online, or sometimes our mom or sometimes our partner that's like, yo, you got to be making money doing this. What are you doing if you're not getting paid for it? Well, if you believe in it, it shouldn't hurt. And if you're strategic, you know that this is building towards something.
Yep.
Right? And I can tell you honestly, the first day I went into it, I did not know it was building towards something. I just had faith that this was the right thing to do. And it's hard. I come from a military family. Every member of my immediate family has been in the military. My mother, my father, my brother, from age 18 on, have never wondered where a paycheck is coming from, never wondered where a meal is coming from, because they've been either in the military or in the government, right? So that's the voice I have in my head.
Outlier.
Yo, we need you, we just want you. Every time I call home, it's like, hey, no, the poetry thing, that's cool, but hey, I got a hookup in the government. Like, if you want to get that job, and that way you can have security, and honestly, that's a way to do it too. If that's what you feel, you need to feel safe to do it. But there's going to come a point where you're going to have to give before asking to receive. And
do you think there's a time frame on that? Because I think some will say, I've been writing for 10 years, 15 years at this point. Why am I still giving?
And my response to you would be, who are you writing for? Who is telling you that you're good at writing? How are you becoming better at writing? Because no one should be doing something for 10 to 15 years and not getting better at it, right? So now you have to ask yourself, have I employed the right set of parameters and skills and obstacles to become better at the thing, right?
Right.
And have I risked enough? Have I put myself out there enough to not only meet people, but to fail and be okay with it? Because if you've been doing something for 10 to 15 years and you haven't gotten to your desired goal, it doesn't tell me that you should give up on your dreams. You should give up on your belief that you are a good strategist and bring somebody else in to help you with that strategy. That's how I feel about that particular thing, because there's too many people on this planet for you not to find an audience.
Right.
Right? Like, you may not be Clint Smith, you may not be Saul Williams, but I'm Joseph Green, and more people have not heard of me than have heard of me, and I still make my living doing this. Right. And I have rave reviews when I go into spaces, so it's not like I'm like going into space one time, sucking, and never going back. Right. So that tells me that there's enough people for you to find your audience. You don't need all the people. You just need your people.
You definitely don't need all the people. You literally just need your people who are willing to support you. They're willing to follow you. They're willing to invest in you and who you are, what you do, because they believe in you. They believe in your gift. They believe in your talent. So the book Talk Ugly.
Yeah.
When is that released?
So Talk Ugly is a graphic novel. And it's in verse. So it's 3 poems: Talk Ugly, Dear Me, and Life is Short, that I worked with a graphic artist out of Baltimore who graduated from my same high school, was one of our first poetry students, but they went to Micah in Baltimore and still live there. And we worked over 8 years crafting this slowly. And it comes out finally April the 8th. But you can go right now to TacomaBooks.com and cop yourself a pre-sale copy. You'll get a signed copy in the mail after April the 8th, and you will get a free digital download of some of the art now so that you can, experience what the book is like. But I want you to not be turned off by the idea of graphic novel, because there's still prose in it and there's poetry in it. So my goal here was to try to hit people from as many directions as possible. And if you are a parent and you are dealing with ghosts or demons or things from your past that you want to face, read this book. If you are a parent and you want to break some of the generational cycles of trauma or addiction in your family, read this book. If you are a young person, middle school, high school, and you know that there are issues in your family or issues in your friend group, and you want to find an entertaining, captivating way to talk about or address those issues, read this book. If you work in the profession, you want to share this book with people, because this is the sort of the penultimate version of my work. And that is taking art to facilitate or conversation about an issue. And so we're also publishing a free curriculum that will be on our website that goes live the same day the book goes out, that will serve as that discussion guide for people. So if you have the book, 1 or 500 copies for your whole school district, I'll let your boy. But if you have the book, it's not just here's a piece of art about some hard topics. It's here's a piece of art about some hard topics, and here's how you can have conversation about it in your life and facilitate that conversation. As a facilitator,
yes.
It's a free tool. You're welcome. As a teacher, someone in mental health, someone in substance use, someone in harm reduction, or just, as most of us are people with families that we care about, and we weren't given the tools to have these conversations, and we see the people we love in pain and we want to reach out somehow. This book can be part of that process for you.
Absolutely. I definitely love that, man. I definitely want you all, definitely go and support that book. How do they get it again? Say it one more time.
TacomaBooks.com. It is being published by a DC Black-owned publishing company, TacomaBooks.com. Support us.
So, TacomaBooks.com. Make sure y'all go and grab that. So you do a lot of work like in the different school districts. Was it difficult for you to get into the school districts? Because I built my curriculums. I haven't sold it to any school districts yet. I gave it to, I got it to a couple of different schools. Was it difficult for you to sell it to the school districts? And what was that process like?
That's the free work, right? I'm not, when I say I don't have a degree, I'm not bragging. Right, because I have put the work in. Right, like if you want to say degrees equal to hours worked in, I've put the work in. I'm sure if I went back to school, I can make an argument where I probably only have a semester left, right, based off my career and what I've done. So I want to be clear about that. So, however, my degree, which you can say is a way to legitimize yourself, right? So you can walk in and say, I have a master's in this, and I am to presume that because you went to a school and got a master's degree in this thing, that you are competent in this. And so if I ask you your advice about it, it'll make sense.
Sure.
Right? For me, the teachers that I work with have seen me work with young people. Because I've gone in as a teaching artist. They've seen my classroom management. They've seen my way to engage young people. They've seen the way that I invoke thought and get young people to embrace their power and create. And I don't give voice. I facilitate a space where their voice can come to life, right?
Right.
And a lot of them feel handcuffed by SOL this or, standardized test that or whatever it may be. And so when they see someone who has a genuine connection, they want to bottle it, right? And so that's what my curriculum is. It's me bottling to the best of my ability what it is I do when I'm in the classroom. And let me be clear about my method here. There are times where I've built curriculums for schools, for after-school programs, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That is rare compared to giving people free curriculum and getting paid to teach them how to teach it. Because that's, for as far as I'm concerned, that is the thing that's missing. You can train a person to go into a classroom and follow a curriculum.
Yep.
But it's hard to train people on the lived experience needed to really connect with another human being without showing them yourself, right? So the way that I so we have a free curriculum online, lmsvoice.com. There's a free curriculum for, it's probably got 120 workshops based off contemporary poetry and music, where there's like a PDF and not a PDF, actual PowerPoint that you can use, so on and so forth. It has been free. It will always be free. And I've gotten paid more money to go and teach teachers how to teach that curriculum than I think I would have gotten paid trying to hustle that actual curriculum. And so it's one or the other, because I have a teacher friend who does the opposite. She actually does both. And she has an advisory curriculum that she sells to schools, and she sends us in to train people on her advisory curriculum. So she does it both ways, right?
Right.
But I have this is a personal principle not a business thing, right? I'm not telling you how to make a whole bunch of money doing that. But my personal principle is that I don't think knowledge should be paywalled. I think that there are schools that need what I have that can't afford me to come, right? So I make curriculum that that is accessible. Not all my curriculum is free, but that is accessible to them, a part of it. And then I put videos online. I do things like this where I try to share as much of the sauce as I can, because I am but here for a finite amount of time on this earth, right?
Right.
And soon we're going to be having video lessons that we're going to be like selling through like Thinkific or something of that sort, as another way to get the knowledge out there. But I personally have found success in offering people. You don't want to offer people free things that aren't of value,
right?
Because then it feels like you're trying to trick them. Right. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, here's my free guide to how to become a successful entrepreneur. And it's like steps 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 is the one that's really going to help you get over there. But we're going to stop talking to you at 4, and you need to give me $3,500 to get to 5. Right.
Those ones blow my mind. Like how people literally be like, there was a guy doing doing an Airbnb course, right, here in the DMV. And so I reached out to him. I looked at his following count. I was like, okay, so maybe I can introduce him to my audience. I, might be able to help him. Reached out to him, was like, hey, we'd love to have you on the podcast. Let's talk about your upcoming course. Now, typically when you see like a sponsor ad and stuff like that, like if people are engaging with it, they're mostly commenting on it and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, there's one comment on your sponsor ad, and it's from me saying, I would love to talk to you. He goes, from one entrepreneur to another, respectfully, I decline to be on your podcast. I was like, so you don't want to talk to an audience that's bigger than the one that you have and offer them the services that you're putting out here in a sponsored ad? I said, you're a fraud.
Yeah, because
you're a fraud.
If what you had actually made people's lives better, it's not a sales pitch.
It's not.
Right? Like, and so, and it can withstand scrutiny, right? It can withstand somebody sitting across from you being like, yo, tell me about what it is that you do.
Yeah.
Right? And my way isn't the way for everybody. Right, it's not the way for everybody. I'm lucky enough to be married to a woman who makes good money.
You too?
Married
up. You know what I'm saying?
The people like, yo, when did LMS Voice like really start? I'm like, when I got health care from my wife.
I love you, boo.
Appreciate you, baby. But yeah, no, I'm in a very strong partnership with and it doesn't mean we both bring in the bacon, but like, how I do it is also like I schedule that into my brain. Like I know that if I have a bad month, that our bills are paid, our kids are fine, type thing. So
we literally
are the same human being.
You know what's crazy? The thought I'm the risky money.
Yeah,
I'm the risky money.
Yeah.
My wife, she's the secure money.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I just got an opportunity to contract out through June 2025. Right. So I looked at my wife and I said, hey, babe, you don't have a mortgage payment anymore.
Yeah.
At least until 2025.
Yeah.
Let's take care of some other stuff. Let's see where we can invest. Let's see where we have some room for improvement. Because now my 4 hours that I work on the weekends, it's taking care of the mortgage, and I got you. You don't got to worry about that. So now let's figure out how we can now set ourselves up, because we've got 18 months, 16 months or something like 16 months maybe of I just got to take care of this on the weekends, and then let's see where we can
see. That's a level like we should do another episode where we talk about like how to be in business and love. Because
that's good.
It's if you are lucky enough to be in a relationship with somebody who is good at what they do and has a steady job and enjoys their job, right? It's not like I have my wife boxed into a life she hates. Like she's a boss in what she does and she enjoys what she does. But yeah, our conversations go the same way. It's like, I know that this is how much we're making. Now look at how much I'm making. Look at what our debt is. Look at what our dreams are.
Right.
And let's use this money, right? Which sometimes can be, I ain't gonna tell y'all no numbers.
Can be really good or really bad too.
Yeah. And just know that like we gonna make it. Because I think the other thing that our partners know about us, and I'm assuming this with you, but rain, sleet, or snow, we're gonna make money.
Come on now.
Right, like, so, like, if I worked in retail for 8 years, if I got to go back into a warehouse, then that's what I'm going to do for 6 months until I get the next contract that's going to allow me to go back to, like, we going to eat. It's not like I'm going to go from hustling every day to just, like, not working. You know, to just, like, being unemployed completely. That's not an option. So I think my wife was willing to take that risk at the beginning of our relationship because she was making much less at the beginning of our relationship, because she saw how hard I worked. Even before, you know what I mean? Like, when I was working at Split This Rock, working at a nonprofit youth organization, I had a kid at that before. I had a kid in a relationship before my wife. Like, that's not how I was, like, making it at that time. Like, I was doing speaking engagements. I was doing other things on the top of that doubled my salary from my day job. Yeah. And so, like, when you see a person who's willing to work that hard, you know they're a good bet. Yeah, you know where your money's good at.
If
someone is unemployed and come and talking to you about their dream and they need you to hold on just a little bit longer, that's not the dude, right? Like, the dude has already shown you he works hard before he takes away from that job to try to go make his dream, because you know he's going to work. See the proof before
see the proof. And sometimes it might not be the monetary proof right away, but you can see this person has something special. And I think that's what I think my wife kind of met me when I was like I was next for sure. It'll just celebrated a year in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. How long have you been married?
This will be year 6.
Year 6. Congratulations, man. That's beautiful. She kind of, I was like there, but there was still a lot that we had to go through in that, because we met during the pandemic, number one, right? And during the pandemic, when we was all inside, we got a lot of us time. But I told her, I said, babe, there's going to come a point in time where this because quality time and physical touch that you love, it's not going to always be there. And sometimes I just need you to work with. And even like I've seen girls where, or women where it's like, I don't ever want to see the mortgage. And I'm like, well, until I can, make that call to you and be like, babe, you done with the mortgage for a little while, I'm going to need you to handle, some of this mortgage, particularly if you want to live,
how you want to live.
Right. Yeah. How we desire to live, at that particular moment. And so, man, I love you're absolutely right. My wife is that same exact way. She saw something, and she's willing to. Hey, look, if crap hit the fan, I got it, because I know I know what he gonna do. He gonna by any means necessary. You know what I'm saying?
Money in. Yeah.
That's it. When's your birthday?
February 21st.
February 21st. Okay, so you got a birthday coming up.
Yeah.
Got you, man. Got you.
Or you trying to see if we like twins?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, dog. If he says September, Virgo.
Gotcha.
Yeah. We are the perfectionists, and so we try to do a lot of those things, but work extremely hard. So your dad, your husband, your entrepreneur, right? There's a delicate balance in order to be successful at all of them, right? One of the questions that I like to ask anytime I meet someone who's like in this particular situation is that how old are your kids, if you don't mind?
I don't mind. 4 and 10.
4 and 10. How do you navigate time with them as well as still do at a high level what you do right now?
So, that's a great question. And not in the, I don't know what to say next, so I'm going to say it's a great question until I think of something. But like, it's a great question because I have to answer it in 2 different ways, because Joseph pre-pandemic and Joseph post-pandemic are 2 different parents.
Wow.
So before the pandemic, my oldest son, his mother and I were never together. It was, I was bartending, I was in a time of life, things happen, pop off. But from the get, I just had my head, I don't know which direction it's going, my bad. From the get, we were splitting time. But that means that when he's on my time, I can't not go to a school because this is what I'm trying to make happen.
Right.
So he went to the school and the baby stroller. I took the plug and play or whatever it's called. And like I had students literally like pushing him around the school, like playing with him, and the thing, like he was with me though. Like there's not a picture from 1 until 3.5 when my now wife came into my life. There's not an event that I did that he's not somewhere in a picture. Like he's around.
He's around.
And like all the poets from that time, like you had so many aunts and uncles, and but like before at that point, it was a dual parent, co-parenting in different households type of thing. So like I could actually build like out of town time for when I didn't have him. Like so travel. So like that was the relationship with it then, because I was building at that point. Now what I realized after the pandemic, because what happened to me, so I get married in 2018. My second son was born December 15, 2019. We're on leave for 3 months, and then the world shuts down, right? March 2020.
Yeah.
Right? So I went back to work for a week in a school, and at that time I was doing all work in schools. And then everything shut down. No idea what I was going to do. Right.
Wow.
And so, so now we move apartments to have a little more space because there's 3 of us now. We need 3 bedrooms.
Right.
But my oldest son and his mother, they go to Alaska during that period of time. Her now wife was finishing her residency as a doctor in Alaska, and it was like, where are you going to take at the time a 6-year-old, that's safe and where they can do whatever the hell they want? Because the numbers in Alaska were like one person has COVID, but like here he's living in like an apartment building with all of his friends, but he's not allowed to talk to them, and he's just stuck inside all the time. So hardest decision ever, but it was like, let them go up there. And so I took his bedroom at our place, and that became my first studio. Looked just like this. Became my first studio. Looked just like this. And but the blessing was, like the youngest son was there, while my oldest son grew up knowing how to say goodbye and being okay when I wasn't there. My youngest son grew up like, if I'm doing this, I'm rocking the thing while I'm on a Zoom call. Like, he was always there. Like it wasn't until he's like maybe 1.5 or something that he was allowed to, like, we started putting him back into daycare and so on and so forth. But then I never went back to work. Like my wife's office, she got a job during the pandemic that was virtual, and it stayed that way. I started doing keynotes from my basement. Started doing so we moved one more time to now where we live right now in Springfield, so that we could have a basement, which is now my studio. I started doing keynotes in my basement. I started filming workshops and sending them into schools from my basement. But I was always home at 5 o'clock. So we go pick the boy up from daycare, bring him home. 5 to 7 is sacred. So like I've come to a point where success isn't worth everything.
Right.
Like professional success isn't worth everything. So I've built, if professional success means when I'm in town, I don't get to spend 5 to 7, 5 to 8, 5 to 9, put my son to bed, read books. If it means that I don't get to do that at least 4 times a week, then I'm just not going to be successful professionally. Right. But I know that I can. Right. Yeah. It just means that there's other things that have to give. The pie is not going to get bigger. Right.
It's not. You got to figure out how to divide it up.
You got to give. Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, being a person in recovery, I only go out to have fun with my family or my wife or to work, right? I don't go out to the bar to be at the bar. I don't go to watch the game at the bar to be with the boys and da. Like like that social life part of myself has diminished a bit, right? I have very few close friends, but very intentional close friends, right? I have families that, like me and my best friend who lives in Richmond, like our families come up. He has a kid that's close to my kid's age.
Right.
We share time together, and like I had to graduate from that phase of life where I was spending so much time entertaining myself out in the world to finding entertainment with my family. Saturday and Sunday, it's like, what's the big family activity we're going to do on a Saturday and Sunday? Daddy's only in town maybe 2 Saturday and Sundays a month during like the busy time of year. So like Saturdays and Sundays, we're going to the zoo, we're going to the museum, we're going to this, we're doing that, and that's the memories I want to build in his mind.
Okay, so I'm glad we're here. Yeah. I'm glad we're here because one of the biggest challenges that I see with youth